Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. You're listening to November's horoscopes. So this is the sun sign horoscope for Pisces. You can always listen to this or read my columns for your sun sign, your rising sign. Some people will even check out their moon signs. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. There's a lot going on this month. Probably the biggest news is that Venus is continuing its retrograde all month long. Oops, I've got somehow this is in. Here we go. Now it's all set. Venus is continuing its retrograde all month long, so we'll be talking about that. But I'm kind of going to start on November 7th. On November 7th, one of the, again, sort of big transits that's happening is a new moon in your ninth house. Now, this comes after a year of having Jupiter in your ninth house, very recently last month having Venus retrograde in your ninth house. So the continued emphasis on the ninth house is there this month, toning the entire lunar cycle ahead. Ninth house is a place of religion, higher beliefs, education, academics, long journeys. So it's a time where you're continuing to expand your mind, expand your heart, expand your sense of what's true or what's possible or what's sort of beyond the horizon. Now, the ninth house Venus retrograde can indicate that there's been some changes or challenges maybe in relationships, Venus, that have involved education or beliefs or ethics or religious or spiritual perspectives or philosophy. And it's also possible that you've been over the past year going through something of an educational process or a spiritual journey. And those themes are kind of coming to a head this month as Venus has finished its retrograde. Jupiter's about to finally change signs and leave your ninth house. But there's a new moon here in the ninth. So it really feels like the culmination of a process that's been happening in this area of faith, learning, travel, and so forth. So I think that really tones the month. But then all month long, you also have Venus in your eighth house, opposite Uranus in your second house. Now, very generally speaking, both of these houses have a lot to do with finances, money, time, energy, resources, values in the material world. And maybe there's been some value or financial conflicts in relationships in particular that you've been working through. Maybe there's been questions around debt, or maybe that there has been some hardships financially. There's been loans or things that you've been paying off or more expenses than you're used to. Maybe change in financial status that's been productive, but also maybe somehow centered around the themes of independence versus dependence, who's carrying the weight, who's the breadwinner in relationships, for example. Any kinds of relational themes that are related to those time, money, energy, resources could be pronounced all month long. Now, the other thing is that the eighth and second houses have a lot to do with what is eventually taken from us or where there is loss and where we hope for eventual gain. And so the themes right now of letting go of things or of impermanence and loss, and where there is maybe some fear about loss or uncertainty about the future, and also some hopes or expectations for gain in the future. Those are general themes that are very strong in the second and eighth house that could be quite pronounced with Venus opposite Uranus all month long. You might be ready for something new and ready to say goodbye to something old. I know that sounds very general and sort of generic, but it would probably be something more closely related to your relationships with Venus retrograde, or with the way you spend your time, your money, your energy, your resources, and how they add to or subtract from the quality of life that you're living. Those would be that would be at the top of my list for you. All right. So going forward from there, some good news. On November 8th, Jupiter will change signs and move into your career house for a whole year. Now, Jupiter is a planet of expansion, faith, growth, hope, optimism. In the 10th, it can bring promotions, a sense of energy and inspiration, good fortune into your career house. Like, who's not going to take that, right? So a very expansive, big year for you professionally, Pisces. I think this is your ruling planet, Jupiter. It's also a year where you may step out a little bit more into the spotlight. You've been thinking very deeply, maybe gathering more wisdom over the past year. You're ready to actualize it in the world this year. I really like this change for Pisceans. I also like it for Sagittarians this month, but Jupiter ruled signs, both of you. So a good exciting month ahead. However, right away, even though the whole year ahead looks really good, there are some kind of existential challenges that accompany the entrance of this. So not without a little bit of a challenge here. As we'll see, for example, right around November 15th, the planet Mars is going to pop into your home sign of Pisces in the first house. Now, the Mars in the first house can be about energizing, activating, you're getting out in the morning for a run, like it has that kind of mood to it. Mars in the first can also be challenging on health. It can be about dealing with anger or frustration. It can be about, sort of aggressiveness and how to best incorporate that kind of yang energy into yourself. But very quickly, Mars, by the 19th of the month, is going to square Jupiter in your 10th house of career. So it can be very activating and energizing for you personally and professionally. I like that. You might be, coming out swinging this month, so to speak, especially the second half of the month. But I also, one of the things that you'll see with the next transit that's coming up is by November 17th, you're going to see Mercury turn retrograde in your career house, square to Neptune in your first house. Here, things get a little bit more existential. There might be some changes, setbacks, revisions, or reversals in your career. And square to Neptune in the first, it has something to do with you, the way that you project or communicate yourself in the world or in the workplace, misunderstandings or confusion, deeper internal questioning about identity or purpose in the career. But you want to be careful because this could be a little bit of a foggy time, possibly not seeing everything clearly, miscommunications or misperceptions could abound. So you want to be careful, thoughtful, discerning, keep good boundaries, especially in the workplace and with how you're expressing or communicating yourself. Be real with yourself, be real with others, and be careful of being overly impulsive. A little existential in the midst of this big, exciting change for you. But then you'll see that the full moon really just kind of highlights the exact same themes, but adds a little twist. So now we have a full moon on November 22nd into the 23rd in your fourth house of home and family. It opposes the Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury in Sagittarius in the 10th house of career, while simultaneously squaring Mars and Neptune in your first house in your home sign of Pisces. The full moon falls in the house of home and family and property. Full moon really sort of highlighting those topics, but in this kind of dynamic tension with this more personal, existential, and professional energy that's coming through so strongly. So watch for a pretty dynamic time around the full moon. Could be very positive. No reason to think it has to be like negative or anything, but it's tense nonetheless. It's where there's creative tension. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're getting enough private time. Make sure you're prioritizing things correctly, and don't spread yourself too thin. So that's what I've got for you this month. I hope that this was interesting. I'd love to hear from you Pisceans out there, hear how your month goes. Tell me your stories in the comments section. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in December. If you can believe it, it's almost the end of the year. So time flies. All right, we'll see you guys next month. Have a good one. Bye, Pisces.